Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. This is a really fun few cards that we are going to be creating today, and this was inspired by the scrap strips that I had left over from some 12-inch cardstock that I was using. Now, I had lots of the scraps, and some of them were double-sided, but most of them were single-sided. So if that happens, and I prefer these to be double-sided, so I actually ended up running some double-sided adhesive sheets down the back of these and then doubling them up so that both sides had a pattern. I was not very mindful of what went with what, and honestly I think it just ends up working out. So I run some of this tape down the back and it was the perfect width. I think I ended up doing these maybe 3/4 of an inch, I'm pretty sure, but honestly, the size does not matter. We are going to be creating some origami birds, and these are super simple. This one here I actually backed with blue itself. I backed the same thing, and then some of these were already double-sided, but some of them I just used any pattern that I could find. So to create these origami birds, it is super simple, but something that I need to let dry is the ink that we'll use to create the beak. So I'm just going to use some orange ink from Hurley. This happens to be the Guppy one. You can use anything. You could use an alcohol marker, you could use any ink, you can use some orange cardstock, anything that you have. But here is what you need to do. Now, I will let you know that my origami skills are not up to scratch, but this one I promise you we can do. All you need to do is take your strip and tie a knot. Tie a simple knot in your piece of paper, and then what I do is I kind of wiggle it down gently, wiggle, move it around so that it creates a, so to speak, tight knot. I mean, you just kind of wiggle it down, shimmy around, and pull each bit gently, each side, pull the other side, and it wiggles down to be this kind of knot at the bottom of your paper. Once you are happy with it and it is tight enough, then press down on it just to kind of keep it in place and make everything flat-ish. Doesn't have to be super flat. Then from here, all we have to do is take some scissors. Now, I think true origami, you don't use scissors, so I guess this is not true origami, but this gives us a gorgeous little bird, which I will show you. I trim off one end to create the head of the bird, and so I just created a rounded end, nothing too tricky. And then the other end, all you're going to do is create a little flag, a little V there in the end of his tail. And then I did decide to take this scrap piece, since I had one piece longer than the other, and I would make this another little feather to his tail, so to speak. So you can choose which color or pattern or design you end up using, but you could have it this pink side, which was the same size as the head of the bird, or you could change it around and have the yellow, which would be the other side that I used. So it's up to you. Obviously, when you play around with this, you can figure out which one you prefer and then glue it in place so that it is going to stay still. A couple more things that we need to do, of course, we need to add a little eyeball, and I just have some different sized googly eyes. Of course, you could use whatever. You could just use a little dab of a Nuvo drops, or you could use a little embellishment, or a little, I don't know, you could just even stamp on an eyeball. You could draw on the eyeball if you were so inclined. I'm just adding on his little beak here. Very simple, just a simple pointy little beak. This bird is all about basic, but I think these look pretty jolly cute. So there's bird number one. I am going to draw on the legs later on, but you could also just pop some wire, or anything. The world is your oyster when it comes to finishing off these little guys. Here's a few more that I also made, and then I want to show you a few cards that I created and where I added these birds onto them. So first up, I'm going to create a kind of simple one with a little background, and then the next one is going to go a little bit more. So I have some mint tape. This is just some low tack tape. This is perfect for masking off, and it is certain not to rip your page. I tried so many low tack tapes. I purchased them all, and this was by far my favorite. Now I have a couple of little very homemade stencils here, but honestly, these are my favorite. I have used these for years now. I believe this was made out of the Lawn Fawn Hillside dies, and I'm going to use some later Gator, Minty Fresh and Clear Skies, sort of two different blues and then a green down the bottom. Now for the grass, I don't need it to be a super crisp mask here. So I'm going to get some really nice stenciling, and I just sort of move this one along in a few different places, and then I also just do some ink blending to raise the level a little bit, and I just whatever I want to do. I'm not too specific about how perfect I needed this bottom to be. In the past, I have also had little trims of ribbon that I have used in place of the grass, kind of little fluffy or grass effect ones, which would look really nice if you wanted to add a bit more texture and a different element to your card making. But you can see I just come back and forward and pop little bits and fill in the gaps where I want them to go. Your dies don't have to be an exact perfect match or exactly what you need. You can add little bits and pieces, stamp them twice if it's a stamp, you know, turn them upside down, use them how you need to use them to get what we need out of our supplies. And that's what I really love doing on my channel, is using things in all different ways. If you had a tree, you could use the branches and turn them sideways, and that would create the grass. I've done that on videos before. Just lots of different ways that you can use the supplies that you purchase and invest in and create fun looks. So now I'm just doing a little bit of ink blending to fill in some of that space in the background, and then I think I actually dip into a darker ink here. I think I use the fake plant color, which is a little bit darker, and just to add a little bit more variation in the bottom, and I just kind of dab it on, nothing special, nothing crazy. And then for the sky, of course, I'm going to bring in that clear skies color, and I barely have any ink on my brush. In fact, I take that back, this is the Minty fresh color, and just barely any ink. I just want it to be really, really delicate in the background. Of course, you could just cut any random piece of paper and you could make the clouds in the same way. It doesn't have to be a die that you have cut. So this is my favorite part, isn't it, everybody's, when you get to peel back and have the big reveal from the masking. As I said, just a really, really simple, easy and quick background that we have created. Now I have the curly greetings here, and I could have picked any of these that would work really well, but Just For You is going up the top because I know exactly who this card is going to, and this just works perfectly for me with the message that I will pop on the inside. Then when I said about the legs, I just use a black fine liner, figure out roughly where I want the bird to go, and then whether I wanted a leg in the back or the front, I couldn't decide, but I will pop them there, just very, very simple. Add a little bit of the multi matte medium glue, that's what's inside that glue bottle, and I fill those up myself, and then pop the little birdie on. And then this is going to be card number 1. Very, very simple. This did not take me long at all with this gorgeous little bird. The next one, we are going to step this up a little bit and do a few more things, and I like this one just as much. Now I'm going to take a couple of these colors. These ones were the ones were already out on my desk from before, so there is Later Gator, and then the Clear Skies is going to be in the middle, and then Minty Fresh is going to be down the bottom. I am doing some ink blending on with some finger daubers, and probably that is not the way to get the smoothest result when it comes to ink blending on such a big piece here. At the moment this is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, but honestly, with the things that we are going to do with it and just kind of have fun and play around with it, the ink blending itself does not need to be ultra smooth. So if you want it to be smooth, a couple of my tips would be to use some domed foam blenders. That's what I find easiest, although I know a lot of people find the brushes the easiest for ink blending. And also something that is going to help you significantly is using something like a watercolor paper that has that finish on it, that surface, that is going to make it really nice and smooth to blend on. I prefer the Holtz watercolor paper, and that one will always give me perfect smooth results for my ink blending. Now this one, I'm going to take the Holtz Tiles stencil. Any stencil is going to work here. It doesn't have to be a specific one. I add some of the blue around and about. Then I have a similar sort of squares, but a little bit different. I'm adding some water through the stencil and getting a little bit of ink removed from there. This doesn't end up being crystal clear because I didn't use my fine mister sprayer, and I find that I get best results when I use that one, but that's okay because we will clean this up and you won't even notice in just a minute those things. So I add a little bit more inking on top, and then I'm going to bring in the faded type background. This is from Holtz, and this is one of those ones I just couldn't resist. I just got this in, and this is the kind of background text that I really, really love. This is definitely kind of one of those mixed media almost backgrounds, but all I'm going to do is stamp this in some clear embossing ink. At the moment I'm using the Maker Forte one, and I love this embossing ink. It's new to me. I've only been using it for, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 months or so. But I absolutely love this. I also picked up a refill for it, although I have not needed to refill it yet. I am putting some clear embossing powder over top. Now this is not meant to kind of stand out and be crazy. This is just meant to be some background noise, and when you move the card around you'll see the shine from the embossing powder. If I wanted it to be a little more in the forefront, I could have done this in some light blue, or I could have stamped it in some light blue and then embossed it with the clear, or I could have used some of the Pearl embossing powder from Hero Arts that I have. That would have also been nice as well. But when I move this, you can just see that background, and that's all I need this to be, because this is a background after all. I may have gotten carried away and just really enjoyed myself doing that process, but that is exactly why I love card making and I love paper crafting, because I have that ability. So now I have this memory box stamp set. This one just seemed perfect. I love this little happy birthday, really clean and simple. Just stamped it out with some black VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then I have cut out one of these. I only need one, but you know me, when I only stamp one I usually end up ruining it, so I always stamp 2. Then I pop some double-sided tape on the back of this panel. I have cut this down to be 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and that is going to leave a gorgeous white border around the outside. Now just to draw on that, I am also going to bring in an oval. I have the ovals from the Elliptical ovals set, and this one just gives lots of just extra detail, that little bit more than just a normal oval. But if all of you have is just a normal one, then that's going to work perfectly too. But I love the extra detail around the edge. And then I'm going to bring in one of my little birdies. I just need to decide which one is going to go and sit on there nicely. I love the blues that's going to pick up in the bird, and that the blues are carried on from the background. So I kept the oval to be white, and that brings it in from the border. And I also think that the sentiment is just nice and plain and white and bold, and stands out nicely from what is quite a busy background. Then I cut a couple of little banner tails into each end of this. This is completely optional. Of course, you could pop the sentiment anywhere on here. I also think that you could use this card for any occasion. I think that this would be lovely to give to a granddad or a dad. It could be a Father's Day card. It could be a happy birthday card. It could be, I mean, so many different things. I think this one would go well for the boys as well. So yeah, lots of different options. Again, I'm just going to draw on his little toes, his little feet, and I am happy with that. Add some glue on the back, and then give that a minute to set. This is all very, very straightforward, but I really enjoyed creating the background of this one. I am going to pop the sentiment up on a little bit of foam and just cut him down to make sure that it fits nicely on my project. But other than that, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I will leave links down below to any of the supplies that I've used that are still available, and you'll just find that in the description box below this video. I will also leave a link to the Buy Me a Coffees if you would like to support my channel. I appreciate that so very much. Other than that,